In this video, I'm going to discuss a little bit of a misconception. People believe that the very second they upload something to the internet, that it just automatically goes to whatever server they need it to go to, and the person that's going to receive it just automatically receives it. It doesn't work quite that way. Actually, all this internet stuff is based on something called the Open Systems Interconnection Reference Model. Now, to understand this, you must understand a Christmas present. Imagine, if you will, a very tiny Christmas present. You've taken a very tiny present, you put it in the box, you've wrapped it up. And then you take that present and you put it in a slightly larger box and you wrap it up. And you do this about 7 times. And then you send the present to the destination you want it to go to. Alright, now when that present arrives at its destination, the person then has to unwrap the present, not once, not twice, but 7 times to finally get to what you wanted them to have. Well, that kind of slows things down. Alright, now I could go into great in-depth detail about the Open Systems Interconnection Reference Model, but I'm not going to, because most of you people wouldn't understand it. And even if you did, well, you can research this on your own. But the OSI model is not your only problem. Remember, I had already talked about upload and download speeds, so that's another consideration. But I also want to tell you that when your data travels a certain number of feet, in some areas it's 300 feet, in other areas it's 1,000 feet, it actually hits a data repeater, because your data can only travel a certain number of feet before it corrupts itself and it's no longer any use to anybody. Alright, so when it reaches a point where it's about to be corrupted, it will actually hit something called a data repeater. And what this data repeater does is it figures out what you're trying to send, and then it sends it out again. In other words, it repeats what you've just done. And it does it over and over again until your data actually reaches the destination it's supposed to go to. Alright, so that's another thing that slows things down. And let's not forget, in some situations, your data is actually going to a satellite dish, which then shoots your data up to a satellite, and then that satellite sends the information back down to another satellite dish, and then it gets sent on through data repeaters to its destination. So that's another piece that slows it down. And let's not forget that just because you upload your pictures or your music or whatever to some company, well, it may go to some kind of a corporate web server before it actually goes to the destination you want it to go to, say an individual. Let's say you're uploading pictures to your email client, and then you have that email sent to your destination. Well, your email would actually get sent to someplace like yahoo.com, then it would get sent to your to the person you're trying to send it to. Well, there you go. And I can honestly say that there are some companies, their web servers work 24 hours a day, but their companies do not. Okay? So just because you send that information to the company you're wanting to send it to does not necessarily mean they're actually going to read that information until maybe even the next day. So to assume that they're going to automatically read your information the very second you send it, it's kind of a little silly. If that company doesn't have people working 24 hours a day, most likely they won't read your information until the next day. And this is very true of mail order companies, and we're talking about the mail order companies that work off the web. So like I say, if that company is not working 24 hours a day, they may not get your information until the next day, even though you sent it the night before. That's just something you have to keep in mind when you're sending information across the internet. Just because you got it to its destination doesn't mean that the person at that destination has actually read it yet. Alright? And this is true of music, of pictures, of video, of just about anything you send across the internet. Alright, I will discuss future computer topics in a later video, so stay tuned.